And I want you to remember this day, and I'll say it again because there'll come a time when geologists will say, yes, we acknowledge this now. That's the science lesson for the day. I want you to look at these things with a different eye. I want you to look at the confluence of nature which created the beauty that is today the desert. And I want you to look out and see the ocean bed before you. Imagine the crashing waves, an ocean that was never still, on the move, and how through hundreds of years and thousands back and forth this occurred. It's the reason there's a delta on both sides of the Grand Canyon, where it flowed one way and then the other way, and then one way and then the other way, cutting what you see here in a majesty that you can look at today. Controversial? Of course. And so it is.
Okay, here I go. Way, yeah, young, hey, young, yo, windy, young, yo, windy, young, away. Hey, young, yo, windy, young, yo, windy, young, away. Hey, young, yo hung, yo hung, yo hung, hung, yo hung, yo hung, yo windy, young, away. Hey, young, so a day, so a day, she can't love yet, none of them. She love yet, none of them. Hey, she da ho yan, na sa do le, hey yo, hang yo, hey yo, way. Hey, young, yo, when the young, yo, when the young, away, way, oh, hey, hey, thank you. Woo! Thank you. Nice for the rain.
Okay, this is the one that I shared with the group yesterday, so here it goes. Yeah, hey, 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 oh, whoa, whoa, hey, 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 oh, way, hey, 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 young, oh, whoa, whoa, hey, 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 oh, whoa, whoa, hey, 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 oh, way, hey, 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 young, yeah, hey, 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 oh, whoa, whoa, hey, 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 away, hey, 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 young, oh, oh, hey, hey, oh, oh, hey, 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 away, hey, 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 young. Okay.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. We're going to start this message as we did the last one. I want you to be still and listen. Now, there would be those who would say there is nothing to hear. And in that stillness, there is sacredness. For in the nothingness is everything. I began the geological channel by telling you that the rocks were alive. And I said, not according to your definitions or your standards, but esoterically, metaphysically, beyond that which you would normally believe, they're alive. We also told you the rocks are listening. That is a metaphor, which means that the energy that you put out is absorbed in certain ways by the land that you're on. Did you notice that in the storytelling and the discussion, that the ceremonies were given in order to create harmony with the land, harmony with the family, harmony with the tribe. This is a high consciousness, dear ones. It is a consciousness that would try its best to harmonize with all around it, instead of taking from it or being opposed to it. It is a concept which is still not here. But there's more. I told you that the planet which you call Gaia was a partnership. So let me take you back. Let's go 400 years. Here. That's double the lifespan of your country. Here. 400 years. The rocks aren't just listening. The rocks are talking. If you have a partnership with the earth, it is critical that you would have those who knew how to hear what the rocks were saying. The rock formations, as you go around this Monument Valley, are now being given names. But before that, they were given energies, personalities. And in the energies, there was the male, there was the female. Some had sacredness. Some you didn't go to. There was the yin and the yang even then. There was the polarity even then. But the shaman, which now you are calling in this land, the medicine man, the medicine woman, had a process, a procedure, if you want to say, of learning and wisdom that took a very long time in order to hear what the land would say. You might understand that even back then, before any chemistry, they had potions that would heal. And those healing potions came directly from the land, from the plants, even some of the animals, in cooperation and harmony with humans, one helping the other. It is so obvious why the indigenous would want to give back in ceremony to that partner which had given them so much. The more harmonious you can be with the land and that which is around you, the longer you'll live. The more beneficial you'll be to others. The more compassion you can show. There are questions. How would the medicine man know what berries or parts of animals or salves to use in order to heal? Was it trial and error? Did they have a laboratory? And the answer is the land told them. The rocks told them. Because you see, the rocks speak. And if your consciousness is allied to the planet to such a degree that you are one with it, you'll know what they say. What you see in the chair right now is called channeling, and that is the word of today. Perhaps the indigenous would be open enough to share with you what it was called back then, because they used it back then as well. Only elders, only of a certain age and a certain lineage, would be able to then speak for the rocks. But as you look at the monuments, as you call them now, and those beautiful sculptures of nature, understand that each one of them had a personality. It still does, if you ask an elder. This is a partnership. Dear ones, that's what's missing. I'll tell you finally this. It's a two-way street with the planet. If the planet knows you are endeavoring to honor it, it responds. It knows who you are, because the partnership must be that way. It's more personal today because of the shift of the precession of the equinoxes, of the prophecies of the ancients that is now coming true. Again, I will say there is a famous etching called the Hopi Indian Rock, talking about this very time, where the path of humanity splits and the choice is yours to go one way or the other. The prophecy of the Hopi is the same prophecy of the Lakota, of the Peruvian, of so many on the planet that say this is the time where the East, the West, the North, and the South will come together in a confluence of understanding. Where there'll be compassion where there was no compassion before, understanding where there was no understanding before, and a very slow remake of consciousness on earth. And in the process of learning this, you turn to the ancients, for they had the truth. The planet knows you seek and will respond. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. Indeed, it has been a beautiful day. I want to review just a little bit, and then I want to turn the page. If you think to yourself, what has been said so far in the previous 5 channelings? The message is simple. It's profound. It's beautiful. That this planet knows you. We spent a long time speaking of the esoterics of Gaia. Today, you heard from the Navajo the stories that they would tell about their traditions and who they are and what they do here. Overwhelmingly, you get the sense of harmony. Not only is there harmony with the planet, there is harmony with themselves, with their families. I told you of the geology this morning, the controversy. Even to extend that, I tell you that everything I told you happened before life on the planet, in the early days of the formations of what you see. There have been mass weather cycles since that time that would put lakes and small oceans here yet again and turn them to deserts and back and forth. You've had little seas here with life in them, hence the shells. There is so much here that hides in history. But the greatest history here is what the indigenous have accomplished. Review. We tell you that as you study them, you find the truth of Gaia and the wonderful relationship to the human being. Now I wish you to turn the page, just briefly. It's one thing to live in harmony with the planet when you're on the reservation. You're in a group that has traditions that are so old that they can't count the years. Here, the ones who live here are free to believe what they wish, but the traditions are strong. And the tradition of harmony within the family is strong. And so that is not that difficult to continue the relationship of the ancients of the past on their own land. But what about you? This is the crux of my teaching. In a modern age, when you leave here, how can you possibly carry out what you see? You go back to that which you would call the city life. Even if you're not in the city, you have a westernized life. You don't have the traditions around you. You don't have the family that is cooperating because they have for 500 years. You will have those who would look at you and have no concept of an elevated consciousness of a 24/7 relationship to the planet. I talk to those of you, some of those of here, some listening, that long ago realized you don't switch on and off God. It's not a Sunday experience. What you do is you carry the relationship 24/7. Before you go to bed tonight, some of you say things. When you get up, you say things. Not unlike those who would then talk to the sun and the moon, celebrate that in ceremony. But it's difficult for you because you don't have the group around you. Spirit knows this. The teaching is this, dear ones, that the harmony that you carry, that you see here in the tribe, that you've learned, is so precious and beautiful to hear. You have got to be self-contained with it. And you've got to then emulate the compassion of what you see here without a tribe. That is work. And that is why you are a light worker. You're going to have to carry your own traditions with you, the tradition of the beauty and the compassion of God, of a relationship to the planet that is far more than anything that the Western world appreciates, understands, or even considers. And here you are living it by yourself, perhaps, if you don't have an alliance with your partner, with your family. You live it by yourself. But the good news, the news that is special since the precession of the equinoxes, is that it literally pushes out and people see it. You might even say it's catchy. And people will come to you and see the peace you have and will say, how do you do it? And you can tell them gently that you've discovered something that gives you peace in your heart, that helps you with the anxieties of the problems of day to day. You are harmonizing with the planet. And in that process, you are literally pushing that outside of yourself so that others can see it. I've said it so often. The masters of the planet, as they walked around, they had a following, not because they did this or that, but because people wanted to be with them. Listen. It's peaceful, isn't it? It's nice to hear. It's nice to feel. That can be you. Standing in the city with turmoil all around you, with anxiety, day-to-day living, pushing the envelope of the stress level of each of you. And you can go inside and claim the truth that you learn here. This is the hard one. That's why you're here. That's why this was chosen. So you can see the emulation. You can see the model and the template. And you can go back and create something that has not been created before. Peace on earth. One at a time. It's catchy. I mean by that, it's almost infectious. Like laughter, beauty, good art and music. People want you around. They'll ask questions. I guarantee there will be those who will come to you and ask, what is it you have? And that is the harmony time. That's when you can start telling those around you that they don't have to be in stress. Dear ones, this is the message, and it will continue to be the message. Even this week, the message. That this is the template. That you can take home individually and practice. You're never alone. The planet knows what you're doing. Spirit knows what you're doing. You're never alone. 28 years ago, I started in this process with my partner to some degree. And it's graduated to this. And if there is a slogan, if there's a saying, if there's anything that has repeated itself all of those years, it's that you're never alone. Can you cognize that? Can you believe it to the point where you can take this with you? We'll talk more about that. But until that time, the rest of these days, I want you to feel everything you can feel. Because you're in the right place at the right time for this. Feel the tranquility now, the peace that is here. There's nothing like it. You can take it home and have it to yourself and spread it as much as you can, as much as you wish. And so it is. Hi, everybody. I'm Lee Carroll. I am the original channel of Kryon.
So in your most beautiful coherence, let's have a little meditation. Get ready for the channel. Take a breath. And then from that space and place of heart love and heart light, let your breathing go right there with it. And feel that place inside of you, that warm, expanded place of love, that place that's been receiving all weekend, that place that's been opening and healing. Breathe into that. Feel the yes that's in there. The yes that you've said to your own heart. The yes that you've said to your journey. To the wisdom that you're finding inside of you. To the synchronicities. To the teachings that you've said yes to. Because you have said yes to your beautiful self. You're honoring here is the exact primary teaching that Kryon has been saying for 30 years. We honor the human. And though it may have taken that many years for you to begin to honor yourself, there's no time like today. And you have just by being here. So take a breath into that and say yes. And when you leave, you take that with you. You take that with you into the world and you let that light up the way in front of you. You let your own wisdom guide you. You let your own mindfulness heal you. And you always have with you the love of Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. If you are one who has come upon this message in a recorded fashion later, in whatever media you're listening, be aware that this is the fourth channel of the weekend. And it's an extension of the other three. You might even call it the farewell channel for the weekend. And so I would encourage any of you who are listening to this after the fact to know that there is a place where the other three exist so that you can see the coherence of all four together. Go find it. It's not that hard. Years ago, I told my partner to record all of the messages and make them available for the planet. In this, sometimes, there is misunderstanding because those will grab one message or another, not knowing what came before. And that's why we say what we do. This energy right now that you sit in is a coherent one. You have sat through the channels, through the training, through the questions, through the teaching. That creates almost a family of experience, even if it's only 2 days' worth. It shapes the message, dear ones, that I would give to this room. For the messages of Kryon, although given to all, are specific to the energy of those around him. You sit with my partner, and the channeling is for you. Those who would listen later may glean some things of truth, but honestly, it's for you. The energy of the human beings that sit in front of me are always the ones who will then influence the message that is given. So what message can I give to an audience that sits at a pinnacle of coherence and is ready, again, to understand things that most don't? So it's not going to be that instructional, but experiential. There's no such thing as a farewell channel. For we have said for so long, you're never alone. But there are those who simply do not understand any of this. And they have come across something called channeling. And perhaps they're even afraid to listen. Not understanding. The channeling is the free flow language of love. Coming through the other side of the veil, you might say, through the creative source, which you call God, directly to a human, and is being then verbalized. That is not understood, especially by an earth that is steeped in rules, and one who has that which is organized spirituality. That is most of earth, dear ones. You pick and you choose which belief system based upon your culture, your parents, and the rules. How many of you, not the ones in this room, have decided to pick the spiritual system, if you wish to say, based upon a personal relationship with the Creator? The answer is not many. In fact, I would like to tell you what the criticisms are. And I would like to go over with you what's going on and what's happening in the minds of so many who will say, I don't understand this. What is this belief system, Kryon, that you're talking about? And I will say, you haven't listened very hard, have you? It's not a system at all. And there will be those who say, we noticed that, and this is our criticism. It's that there are no rules. What are the rules? You have to have some rules. You say what we have heard from others is that it's just loose. Anything is okay. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there's questionable truth. It's filled with things we've never heard before that are very strange indeed. How can we log in, if you want to say, to anything that is this loose? I'll give you the rules, dear ones. And here they are. God loves you more than anything on the face of the universe. Because inside you is the creative source. Made in the image of God, you are. Meaning that you are part of the Creator. That's the rule. How do you like it so far? What you do with that is what anybody would do with love. That's where the rules are not there or not present. Because we're not about to list what you should do or what happens if you don't. Those are things that belong to a scenario, a paradigm of humanism, not of the Creator. There's so much objection to how loose this appears to so many. If you were trapped in a box, and finally somebody let you out, There are some who would be so disappointed and want to get right back in, because it's just too loose. You don't have the sides of the box anymore. You don't have the guidelines anymore. Instead, someone turns you loose and says, feel what you feel and understand what the Creator is all about, because it's inside you. It's intuitive. Go for it. And there are those who say, that's just ridiculous. I need a system. That's changing, dear ones. There are more and more awakening to the idea that all of the rules are contained in the one word called love. Because when you start to absorb that, and it becomes part of you, it becomes the right way. It becomes honest, and there's integrity, and there's compassion and benevolence automatically, because of the one rule, love. Masters all over this planet showed up to give you that information. One or two of them became famous for giving you that information. Not much more. Not really the rules as exist today. They wanted to look you in the eye and say, there is love here, and it's a oneness with all things, and everything is involved. The dirt of the earth, the rocks, the birds, the atmosphere, the trees, other humanity, all in a oneness, a consciousness that begs you to love. And that then creates the metaphor of what we have called light. It changes you. It changes how you act, how you perceive. And yet there are those who say it's not good enough. It's just too loose. A little too loose. We've given the example before. That human being who you're in love with looks at you and says the most amazing things to you. Look you in the eye. I'm so glad I found you. I love you. I love you beyond anything you can imagine. I am in love. I'm going to stay in love. I truly love you. So what is the reaction to that, dear ones? Do you have a human then stand back and fold their arms and say, what do you mean by that? It's a little too loose. And you don't say that. You feel the overwhelming passion of togetherness and love, and you return it. It just begs you to say, I feel the same. And that's when you take their hand and things change. Biology changes, chemistry changes, ways of life change because of love, even between human beings. When your child looks at you and says, I love you, Mommy. I love you, Daddy. And you see those eyes and you realize what they're really saying, what they've learned from you. And you think, oh, there's hope in this planet because of these little ones. Or do you look at them and you say, I'm not really sure about that. You don't analyze it. You don't make rules around it. You don't say, well, it's a little too loose for me. You accept it. And you go from there intuitively. What does love mean to you? What kind of structure and boxes do you have to put around it before it's acceptable to you? And if you really think this through, the answer is you don't need any. The idea that God is in another room somewhere has been given to you by humans. And then there's this selected few that can talk to God for some reason. And you have to talk to them to find out what God wants for you. Does that really sound logical? I love you, honey, but you're going to have to talk to this person over there in order to talk to me. I love you beyond measure, but talk to that person, please. I'm not available for you, even though I love you. And that is simply comical. So why would you apply that comedy and dysfunction to the creative source where you carry the image of God inside. It's time for you to hook it up and understand. This is not linear. This is a multidimensionality that you carry inside you, which is the creative source itself, which is awakening you to love and light on this planet and asking you to find the light in your life if you haven't found it yet. With help and benevolence from all of the things you think are divine, including the angels and the entourages that you name, even if you don't need to. There's no hierarchy, but you make them anyway because it makes you feel better. But there really isn't. You have 100% connection if you want it. There are still the humans that say, okay, I believe you. How? And the answer is just say I love you back and see what happens. Dear Spirit, I don't understand any of this, but I'm willing to give it a try. What you've just done is to stick your hand through the veil and say, hold it, will you? You've opened the door with free choice that says, I believe that there may be more than I was told, that God may be bigger than I was told, I may be bigger than I was told. And that's when it floods into you. And the love that you feel from the other side of the veil shouts at you and says, you are magnificent, born magnificent. Let's get on with light on this planet. And you don't have to think about it. And you don't have to label it. And you don't have to make lists because it's going to come to you intuitively as you need it day by day. Is that a little too loose for you? And to some, it still is. That's the free choice of the human being, dear ones. This message that I have given for 30 years used to fall on deaf ears of so many for so long. And now suddenly the same message starts to make sense. And the only thing that has changed, dear human, is you. Light is starting to show itself on this planet in ways you have never, ever seen before and will continue to. As it shows things that are dark, you will reject and repel in horror that you didn't see them before. Then you will understand the only reason you're seeing them is the light that you carry. The invitation has always been the same. Allow for things you don't understand. Allow for things that are greater than you thought they would be. Do not buy into the idea that things are always getting worse and that you are nobody. For dear ones, those are the lies of the darkness, wanting to take away that which is the image of God in you and bring you to a place where you don't know who you are and you can be manipulated. That's not who you are. Magnificent is who you are. Filled with light. Kryon, I wish I could see this as you present it. I'm having a hard time seeing myself as anything except what I've been told. Dear ones, I'd like to say to you, all you have to do is start the process. Each of you is so different. Dear Spirit, and you raise your hand, show me. I am willing to see the light where I haven't before, crawl out of a hole I've been in that I can't get out of. I don't know how it works. Take my hand. And Spirit will say, it's about time you ask. Instead of making lists, following rules, and doing what you're told by someone else who really doesn't understand the love that has always been there for everyone. Farewell channel? No. For if the creative source is in every single human being, if you indeed were created in the image of love, that means that you are family. And will always have that connection wherever you go, whatever you do, wherever you are. It's going to be just like you're in the chair, dear ones in this room right now, just like it. As you drive home, if you're alone, even if you're not, if you just take a moment, that love is here and will always be here. You can't chase us away because we're part of you. That's the message, and will always be, from this man in the chair. And so it is.
So what we're doing is, it's a little different than normally. We're going to start recording these Q&As. Someday we may put them on the site. If you don't want your voice on the recording, don't ask a question. It's pretty easy. And what we're going to do is, Monica is going to pick the people who raise their hands. And we're going to pick two to begin with, because one of you will come to the mic, the other will be ready to go to the mic. And then every time a question finishes, we'll pick another one who will then be ready, so that we don't have to wait for every single person to come up. But you do have to go to the mic, so all of us can hear it, and also we can record it. Do you understand? It's pretty straightforward. So Q&A time. Would you pick two people who raise their hands?
I'd just be curious, what does Kryon have to say about the future with like public transportation or bullet trains, or is there anything exciting like that?
Yeah, artificial intelligence. This is going to help us with the obvious stuff, and that is so we don't run into each other and have a population that is so clogged on freeways and everything else that we just have to stop. You realize what would happen if there was an intelligence behind every vehicle? Is that they would all flow, and there would be a way of coming on the roads. The things we see in the future in movies and things like that, that's what it's going to take. Because with us driving, or whatever it is, in the mass transport I'll get to in a moment, that's going to make it go a lot better, a lot smoother. That's one thing. Then people are all afraid of that artificial intelligence. And of course, mass transit should always be present. I'm in California, in San Diego, Los Angeles, and that whole area. A man named Harvey Firestone convinced the city years and years ago, it was in the 30s actually, and 40s, to take out all the trolley tracks. We had trolleys, even in San Diego, and go to tires and buses. So we never had the easements that were then going to be necessary for mass transit, and today you see the results. So there's going to have to be, we're going to swallow hard and have to then create certain things that we don't have now. That's just common sense. As far as some inventions coming, the biggest one that we're going to have that may very well change this and show what the future is going to be like that we never thought we would get to is when we have what Kryon says, when we discover how to manipulate physics. Right now, we study physics and we make rules. This operates this way, this way, this way. Here are the rules, pass on. Instead of looking at it and saying, wow, how can I change it? Mass, density, all these things, according to Kryon, are manipulatable. And it has to do with polarity and phasing and all these things that physics is starting to understand. That will allow us to have massless objects, and then we'll be able to control things, not flying, but floating. You apply that to artificial intelligence, and there'll be layers. Then we won't run into each other. That is coming, but you won't see it, I won't see it, the kids may not see it, the grandkids may. So that's where it's going, according to what Kryon says. So anything is possible. Those inventions are not here yet, because again, he says you're still going to weaponize them right now, till we get to a place where there's more peace on earth.
Thank you. Yesterday you talked about our fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, but they were all from within this solar system.
Yes.
What about transmissions from other galaxies?
Well, those grandfathers, that's just corrected. Those grandfathers' fathers are within this galaxy.
Galaxy, correct.
Right, and I knew you knew that.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, right, galaxy.
When you start asking Kryon about things outside the galaxy, including
where have our past lives been? If we're eternal souls, is this a onesie or have we done this before? And Kryon says, this is what you do. When I asked Kryon, how long has my soul been doing this? The answer was yes. In other words, probably a whole lot longer than you can even fathom. Then I asked the question from other galaxies, and he said, don't go there. This galaxy is unique for everything that we've talked about here. Every time we're talking about the benevolence, the creative source, this is something unique to the galaxy. Kryon says, stay away from talking about other galaxies. It's just information that is confusing to you. It's different. Then science has decided, and they point to other galaxies and they say, we've discovered different physics there. There's probably different life there. So it's not the same. So stay within our area. Our grandfathers, our creative grandfathers in the Orion and the Arcturians and all this is the story of our galaxy. Then when you start looking at it and going, will we ever see them? It's so far away. And then Kryon says, it's only far away in 3D. When you start talking about consciousness, entanglement, things that we're just now starting to see, there is the potential and possibility, not of light speed, that is slow. We're talking about instant communication with consciousness to those on another side of the galaxy. Do you believe that's possible? Do you know that twins can communicate with each other on the other side of the earth? They know when things are happening, and that's a DNA combination. We're just beginning to understand these things which have been eye-rolling for so long. And so that's really where it's coming from. Will we know the Arcturians? Yes. Will we know the Pleiadians? Yes. There's going to come a time when we'll have a family gathering. When we reach that point on the planet, when we are evolved enough to understand truly what has gone on here, we'll demand that we come and they know them. And they're not going to come in ships, Kryon said. That's old.
Thank you. Hi, Lee.
Hi.
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
First time. Oh dear. Oh dear.
I think you almost even might have just answered my question, but in regards to entanglement theory, does that kind of involve the twin flame spirit? I mean, does that explain that on a micro level?
Yeah, it could. When you start looking at the whole idea, and did you say twin flames? Okay. That's more, I think, of a consciousness entanglement and past life recognition and energies that people find with other people. But in physics, just plain old physics without consciousness at all, entanglement is there. I mean, it's something we're going to understand and use in a way that we don't even recognize we can use. So when you talk about twin flames, and I like to talk about that, and Kryon has discussed that, this is like entanglement would be with consciousness. So to answer your question, that's how I see it. Is it possible that there's an arrangement that is so strong between souls that you will then recognize someone on the planet, even from another country or whatever, so strongly that you say, I know you, we've been together. And that will be a connection that is on purpose, that you're meant to discover, and what you do with it doesn't always have to be romantic. It can be partnerships in business or whatever. But you find a best friend or a partner and you realize we've been together for a long time. And you think alike and you do things alike and you love each other on whatever plane you love each other. That's twin flames. And that's entanglement in a conscious way. So it truly is related, but it's not the physics of entanglement as we discussed it.
Thank you, Lee. Kryon talks about time capsules. My question is, time capsules similar or the same to vortexes?
They're very different. And you got to remember, we're looking at nomenclature. We're looking at descriptions and words that Kryon has given us. And not necessarily what we have learned is the name. For instance, the only time Kryon has talked about time capsules is the nodes and the nulls of the planet. created by the Pleiadians. Now, when we create a time capsule for a building or something like that, we take the news of the day, we take everything that's happened that we know, or tapes, and we put it in a vault and make a time capsule of it and say we're going to open it in 100 years. That's a time capsule to us. But a time capsule, as described by Kryon in a node and a null, is a capsule, or let's say a place that's a time capsule where things will open at the right time. Now, what he's saying is that these nodes and these nulls, these places where the Pleiadians landed and trained and taught, including Hawaii, are time capsules. And as they are matched, they start opening, and that opening it's time for that. It's past the shift. It never would have happened if we didn't make it past that shift. Is opening and starting to feed the planet and the grids things that we are picking up in the field intuitively. That is why there's a quickening going on of the intuition of how to do things, what to find, the inventions. Are you aware, if you start looking at history, did you know that most of our major inventions were given all over the planet at the same time? Do you find that odd? I find that really odd, just as a logical thinker. Did you know that the Wright brothers only beat the French by 2 weeks? We were all working on powered flight at the same time. Marconi, the invention of the radio, it's still contested because there was somebody who got it at the same time. They just didn't get it public at the same time. And it's odd to me. Usually you look at an invention as one person, like Tesla, was something so amazing. Nobody had it. Now we know that Tesla is a wild card. So if you look at that, it's not impossible that what they're saying is these time capsules may do the same thing. Here comes something else you should know. Here's something else that you should know. So people don't want to think that we are given these things, but there's so much evidence that that's the way it works, that whether you like it or not, we're going to be given these things, and we still are. I'm looking for, and Kryon has channeled it, the way of desalinization of water that we haven't thought of. Kryon is talking about it. We're looking at electricity. Again, Kryon is talking about it. He's saying you missed the boat. You missed the boat. You've got all of this magnetic power that can push and pull. Use it. Instead of building the most expensive steam engine in the world called a nuclear reactor that's dangerous. So you can do these things without danger and without using resources of the planet. It's time. That's going to start showing up. So that's how I feel about that.
Thank you very much, Lee. I just want to say synchronicity is at its max today. Everything you're talking about and everything we're talking about all ties into what I have to say here.
Right on your list there.
And I had to write it down in order to get it to you because otherwise I would forget. But I just want to say thank you to you, Lee Carroll, Joe Dispenser, Greg Lipton, Greg Brayton, and you guys are awesome. And I think you guys deserve a
thank you.
Big applause. Thank you. Thank you. The reason why I come up here today is because I have listened to you guys for practically 2 years now, and my life has changed I'm not the same person. We're powerful creators, and I understand that. And I've listened to you talk about community, new inventions. Right there, we just spoke about it. Inventions of electricity, water, heat. I'm throwing plants and eliminating trash and debris. We are powerful creatures. Together, I'm asking us all support each other in prayer, affirmation, meditation, whatever you want to call it, to help clean up these issues and to help support what you guys teach us. And I'm so awesome and so grateful to be alive at this moment. And that pretty much is it. That includes, let's meditate because we're powerful people. Let's meditate on eliminating items like the chemtrails, water pollution, and the food pollution. We could do it together.
Actually, thank you for that. I
love you, brother. I love you with my heart. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that too because that's what you brought forward here. We have been polluting our planet, polluting the oceans and all that, and we know that. We've heard that all our lives, and now it's reached a tipping point, actually. Such a point where they're saying that we're the ones who are causing the weather change because we did that. Kryon says that's not right, but we didn't cause that. However, Kryon did say you're going to have to clean yourself up soon because you'll kill yourself if you don't. So the problem with pollution is we're going to destroy ourselves if we don't realize this soon. The planet is very survivable. Kryon says it's a lot more resilient than I think. It's going to be here a lot longer than we are, no matter what we do. So I love the fact that right now you're starting to see, along with the Me Too movement and everything, you're starting to see projects that are starting to be privately funded, ideas from individuals, not governments, that are starting to look at even the what do you call it, the Pacific junkyard, or whatever things on. And they're looking at ways, and we've been told it's impossible. There's too much. I mean, it would take forever. And people are saying, well, then let's start. Don't tell me you can't do it. Funding is going to come. There's all manner of things going on, and I'll just tell you one thing that you need to know. There's a special. I keep talking about it. I think the special's maybe 2 or 3. I think it may be 4 years old by now. It's on YouTube, and it's called Billions in Change. Billions in Change. The guy who invented the 5-hour energy drink, all right, became, probably not your favorite thing, became a billionaire almost overnight. Luckily for us, he had a consciousness where he said, I don't know what to do with the money. And he's really, really wanting to help the planet. And so he says, I'll fund anything you can show me that works, that's practical or entertaining. Just show it to me. And you got to see this special, about 45 minutes long. Some of the things that people have brought to him that are working are extremely Kryon-esque right now, including one man. Kryon has always said, what are you doing building nuclear reactors for heat when it's at your feet? You don't have to go that far down, and you get heat. And the answer was from the engineers, we haven't figured out yet how to drill that far down, and how to get it from that far down. In other words, all of those objections. And he said, and Kryon's answer, would that research cost you less or more than a nuclear reactor? You haven't figured it out. Spend the money where it's going to count. Then we find out this guy actually figured it out. And he actually figured out how to get the heat from the hole. I mean, these things are known. They're happening as we go. So if you want to see something special, there's the funding. So we say, well, I got this invention. Well, it's free energy and whatever, but I can't get anybody to listen. Write him. If it's practical and it works, he's interested. And he's got the money. Billions in Change on YouTube, the 45-minute version of that. It's a flasher. I mean, like you'll go, what? These things are here and existing. And that's, I think, where it's going to go. So what we're seeing, bottom line, don't look to your government. Okay? They've got their hands full. They really do. It's going to come from private industry, private sourcing, places you don't know yet.
Lee, Kryon has said that we are in a new energy, we're a new human, and that we need to let go of the past and let go of the way we were. So I'm thinking that this means that I don't need to get sick and suffer anymore. Is that true, or is that?
It is true. It is true, and you won't. Getting sick and suffering. You might say, well, it's just the human condition. Then you start asking yourself, you start going around the room where you get different immune systems, whatever, how often you get a cold, how often you get the flu or whatever. I haven't had the flu in 35 years. I've never had a flu shot. I have a consciousness that says it's not going to happen. All right? I get a cold about every year or so. Kryon says that is a rejuvenation. We need it because it recalibrates certain parts of the body. You got to go through this. It's not, it's suffering for a little while, but it's a recalibration. And so Kryon teaches that very thing. You don't have to get sick. You don't have to go through these things. It's part of the consciousness. If you've listened to Bruce Lipton, it's part of the consciousness of our culture that expects you to get sick. And there are ads and ads and ads and ads after 10 o'clock at night that tell you it's not your fault. And here is the medicine because you got this and this and this and this and this and this. And it's just endless. So we're fed this all the time, that it's common to have these things wrong with you. And so that goes into the psyche no matter what I say or anybody else, until we just discard that whole idea and say, look, I'm in charge of my biology. And I'm going to not only live longer, but I'm talking to my cells. I'm not going to catch things anymore because that's just a program that we've been given. Now, there will be people who would argue with that and say, no, disease is disease or whatever. And Kryon says gives you something that nobody has believed yet, and that is, did you know that disease has vibration? What if you're vibrating higher than the disease? It can't touch you. Have you thought of that? And this is part of the Kryon teaching. He says, you're going to evolve to a place where people will study history and remember what cancer was. Because it isn't here anymore. That's coming. I'm a kid. I remember what polio was as a kid until we got the cure for that. It was so easy, under the tongue. It's not just inventions that will cure disease. It's about disease that will no longer be there because it can't touch a human who's vibrating at a higher level. These are the things that are coming that nobody's going to believe until they start happening. They'll happen slowly. There'll be reports, well, where has this gone? And what happened to this? And cancer is going to be one of them. I guarantee you.
Thanks. I'm trying to find the right words to ask this question. I'm a happy person.
I'm a happy person.
But, and I'm trying really to ignore news and all of that. But the hatefulness hurts me. And how long do we have to put up with that?
Too long. And here's what I want to tell you as a happy person. That happiness that you are working with is you are part of the battle between dark and light. Your happiness is light. You're not the only one that's looking at the earth, and whether you watch the news or not, and are looking at things and going, how long do we have to have this and this and this and this? Kryon has said, this is the battle between dark and light. And so what you have to do, and what Dr. Wolf is part of in all of this, we have to learn to reframe how we feel about these things and understand we're winning a battle. And everything we're looking at, which is dark, is going to lose. But it's here. And it's here. We're at a cusp of human nature change and all that, where and I don't want to get morbid here, but Kryon says the worst is yet to come. When we discover what is really being done at a level of sexual slavery of children, who is involved, how it's funded, it's going to come out of the woodwork. And that is worldwide. It's coming. And you don't even want to look at that, dear. I don't either. So you're going to have to, because at some level we're going to look at it and go, it wouldn't be here showing itself unless I had the light that caused them to see it. So that's why you got to reframe how you think, and then it won't hurt. It's not going to hurt your heart. Okay? You understand that? Good.
Thank you, Lee. Yesterday I heard something I hadn't heard before, so it may be new to other people or it may just be new to me. But at the near-death experience, we're programmed to have a mystical or a heavenly kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Who did the programming, and is it real or is it just inside of our brains?
I'll be happy to help you with that, because this was brand new news for me as well, and I'm sitting here channeling, but Kryon showed it to me. The program is some benevolent program of death given to us by the Creator. Who created us? And who is it who put us the divine seed in us? Who gave us free choice? This is given to us, and Kryon said, a program. You want to know the proof of it? I didn't realize it. Start checking into NDE experiences. They're almost all identical. You've got the tunnel, you've got the light, you've got the one who comes back and says, I'm not afraid of dying anymore, over and over and over and over. That's a program. And the program, we don't even like to call it a program, is a benevolent program so that we don't go into fear, horror, shakes, panic when we realize we're shutting down and dying. It's a program given to us of benevolence and light, so we'll go, I remember this, this is okay. That should sit well with you. So the program was given by the Creator for us. This is what Kryon says. There's so much benevolence that you don't see and you don't know about given to us so that we don't have to go into fear and panic and these kinds of things. So that's a good question, because that's brand new information for me too. I love that. When Kryon gave that, it made so much sense to me. Even sitting here, I thought, Now I got it. I said, it's just so interesting to hear the near-death experiences of so many people and to have that similarity. Do you know what else is similar on a whole other subject? And I'll just go there. Nobody ask it. Is that all right? Okay. I love the fact that only time we had humans get out of the magnetic field is when they went to the moon. You realize that? Now our magnetic field goes out for hundreds of miles. And so the further out you get, the less it is. Kryon said, book 1, you need the magnetic field for life. If you remove yourself from the magnetic field, things start happening. What has happened to almost all of the men who went to the moon and came back? There's been a book written, and there's been a number of them. They first of all, they usually quit the service, they're done. They became artists, a preacher, a poet. Things started happening to these guys. They changed completely simply because they were outside of the magnetic field for a little while. This magnetic field we have is related to our consciousness. Most of us will never leave it. And so that is also a program. I think it helps us with the veil and that kind of a thing. So now we understand, too, that the magnetic field, for whatever it's worth, is starting to lessen. It's not as strong now as it used to be. Kryon said the magnetics of the planet moved more in 10 years than it had in 100. We have now validation of that. I gave it in one of the bulletins we had, and the research shows it. And it's very Kryon-esque. It even shows when it started and stopped. And those years that he said would happen. That's why the whales beached themselves for so long, because the magnetics changed and they were migrating into land instead of water. That's why the runway numbers have been changed all over the planet, because runways are compass headings. Magnetics change, it's lessening, it's changing, helping to change the consciousness because we passed the marker. Do you understand how the earth is coordinating with us? So you can't unknow those things I just gave you. Go do your research. Those things happened. And they happen on schedule when Kryon said they would happen. Things are happening on the planet that go way beyond that which you consider metaphysics.
Hi. So my question is about the evolution of education and learning.
Okay, education and learning.
So I've noticed personally in myself this rise of feeling like I know a healing modality that I absolutely have no recognition of knowing.
Yes.
And so my question is what does Kryon think about how our education system is going to change? Are we going to have institutions that help us kind of tap into this innateness and kind of expand it? Or is an education system going to kind of be obsolete because the education is actually within ourselves?
I think all of those things, because when I asked Kryon, he says, what you don't know is that over a generation or so, do you realize the problem was indigo children coming old school, ADD, ADHD, all this stuff. You realize that over a period of years, and it doesn't take that long for young people to be in charge. So you have indigos, I'm looking at you. You have indigos, even older indigos, then starting to be in charge. By the time they get into the place where indigos are running things and they are the principals and everything else, there's a slow, gradual understanding and recognition of the change of education. So this is going to be a slow thing that happens. Any institution that has to change radically, there's a pushback, simply because it always worked or there are those. But slowly there's a die out. You understand that. And so when you have young people who have grown up in a new energy in charge of it, that's when the things start to be able to be changed. And so they will change probably within. And I love the fact that you said institution. It's going to change paradigms. It may not be the kind of institution you think. It may be more privatized than you think. There may be a realization that Montessori and some of these Waldorfs all along have figured it out, and then a turn to them and ask them for advice in public school. Unbelievable as it may seem, that's where it would be going. And it seems too good to be true, but watch for it in the news, but it takes a while, as you know. But that's, are you involved in that? Or are you just curious? All right. I love your curiosity. You will be involved in it.
As we move away from linearity, are things like ownership and capitalism going to still hang around? as we move into these new inventions and patents?
Yes, the answer is yes, but
like
they morph and change. You can call them what you want to. Capitalism has a bad name, but it's the way in a real world. I have a degree in economics, so get me going. And it's the way we've discovered where we can have a system where everybody wins. It's not savage capitalism where you have a loser and a winner. For instance, you go to a movie, and it's a great movie, and you sit there and you paid your $10 or whatever, and you enjoy it so much, and then you see the movie actually put about 3,000 people to work, for a year or more, and you realize, wow, this is kind of a win-win situation. Now, there are people in there that got a lot more money than others, and that's whatever it is, you have to look at that. But it's almost like a win-win situation. We're already starting to see it in new ways of business and corporate. For instance, Google itself is an example. When it came in online and all, I thought to myself, how are they ever going to make money? They're giving everything away. Can you imagine we have a world encyclopedia on our phone? Anything you ever wanted to, you don't have to go to the library anymore because your encyclopedia is in your pocket. So this is absolute knowledge for everyone, a world, anything that's ever been worked on or discovered or, and I thought, if they're going to give it away, how is it going to make money? It took them 3 years to figure that out. They didn't know either. But what took place was what you see now with Google and ads and all that. That's just marketing. But it's a brand new paradigm we never saw before where everybody wins. You start to look at the things that in a different way. Every time you have a new paradigm, it would appear that an old one has to go away. It often does, and you bemoan that. And you say, well, I miss the grocery store down the corner or whatever, and now we have to go here, there. And you're part of a new paradigm which eventually will help more of us. I want you to watch for this. So when you take a look at capitalism, that's how it's changing. New paradigms of capitalism where more people win in the process of selling a product. I love something I never thought would happen is that if you're a composer and if you're a kid, and let's say that you're an up-and-coming composer as an 18-year-old, and you got a song that's great. Did you know that you can put it on a place on the net and let 1 million people hear it and judge it right now, even with you and your guitar? You might think, well, so what? I'll tell you so what, because it wasn't that many years ago you would never be heard by anybody, because the record companies had attorneys, not musicians, in charge of opening the bags of cassettes, listening to every single one of them, and choosing which one was good. And that's how hit songs were done. I've been in the industry. Now you have artwork, you have poetry, you have the best of the best, which is instantly available to everybody, and they can make a judge for themselves. This thing about America's Got Talent and Idol and all these, have you seen the amount of talent we're seeing in the world? That never happened before. That is a new paradigm. You get in the picture. So you're not going to have a big shift or something fall or fail and go through that in order for a new paradigm. They show themselves, and the media has allowed that. And of course, with that's the downside too. You have to choose carefully what you see and watch because everything is available. But we're smart. We can do that. Anyway, that's how I see capitalism shifting and changing. More people are going to win. There's going to be a lot better. We have ways now of microfunding. Have you heard of that? Well, if you have a project, there are those who will loan you $100 or $200 or whatever to get it launched. And these are the things we're starting to see. Never in my age was this here. This is going to change capitalism and redefine it.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. My question has to do with artificial intelligence.
Good.
So I totally resonate with what you're saying about what's coming and the future and all the shifts and all the good things and all that. So this question is sort of a tree with a couple of branches. My concern is the loss of jobs that is coming with all the robots and the artificially intelligent systems that are taking the place of jobs. And yes, eventually some people will get trained into new jobs, but there's also a whole section of humanity, the blue-collar workers and coal miners and so on, which doesn't seem like they're going to move into technology that quickly to recover. So this is going to possibly affect our whole economic system and the whole capitalist genre and so on like that. Also, we have the concept of the damage that electronics is doing to our nervous system, children not engaging in their human abilities and taking, all the little electronic things and gadgets and so on. That's all a given. And then we have 5G coming.
That's the third question.
So that's, yeah. So yes, my only solution in my tiny mind is mutation, and that's,
answering them one at a time, and every single one of those is absolutely, truly a concern. Any new technology gives us a concern. I mean, you can imagine what happened when automobiles came in to all of those who did horses. I mean, it always is there. Always is there. 5G. I hope they stop it someday. It's not appropriate. Everything I've seen about it is wrong, and yet they're going forward. Do we have power as public or not? And I hope that they can redesign it or eliminate it under the guise of communication is better. They're putting 5G in known to be harmful. Okay. Number two, you ask in the second question about the first question was about jobs. The second question. Do you remember what it was? She's not.
Yeah, the second part was children and the EMF
Okay.
and the harmfulness
that
of electricity.
Yeah,
and
okay.
The energies, yeah.
All of these things are going to have to be taken into consideration, but I think the biggest part of your question was the fact that we're giving them gadgets and dumbing them down. Ask a child today to do long division. I'm not even sure it's still taught. And so what there has to be a recognition of back to schooling. So we must have the basics in school. We cannot throw them away because we have calculators. I learned on a slide rule. Anybody know how to work that? Okay. The kids today have no idea. That is very valuable. We ought to be able to do everything manually, and there should be classes on that in school. I think that is coming because it makes sense. There will be some institution will test the kids and find out that none of them could do anything without their phone. And they'll go, holy moly, what's missing, and that's going to get around, and that's how these things happen, very, very slowly. The job situation is more complex. I don't know. But Kryon says there's things that you don't know that we'll need to manufacture and do that are not here yet. And so you have a shift from one kind of a production to another production. When Kryon said a number of things that are coming, and he talked to this group in Serbia about it. He said, batteries are dead. You won't have them anymore, ever. And then there's a question, well, how are you going to do it? Because what you're going to end up with electricity production absolutely everywhere, miniaturized, with little magnets spinning around making trickle charges constantly for your phones or whatever. Batteries won't be then thrown away anymore. And there's a whole industry. What are we going to do about the batteries that are being discarded? And he'll say, there are none. So who expected that? You see what I'm saying? This is the same kind of thing. Nobody's going to expect certain things that are going to occur because they haven't arrived yet that are going to put people to work. And then we have to decide about things like China. Who's going to do our manufacturing? Us or them? Does it make sense? These haven't really been discussed yet or really balanced. And they will be because you're going to have younger and hopefully better common sense politicians who will ask those questions. And then the public can start voting and seeing a different kind of politician. Kryon has talked about this. He says you're going to have a politics where they don't assassinate each other. And they don't have committees digging in the dirt of the other side's, right. And that you're going to judge on how compassionate they are to each other. Can you imagine such a thing? I can't either. I go, well, that's nice talk, Kryon, but that's not in my time. And Kryon said, you're right. It isn't in your time, but you'll see it start. And what you're going to see it start, and they'll lose, but you'll see it start. Because somebody's going to get the idea, I'm going to win this election because people are going to see in me wisdom and balance. They're not going to see me assassinate the one who's running.
I would like to talk to the one who's running and say, you're a patriot just like I am. We got different ideas, but let's go for it. You run on your ideas, I run on my ideas, but there's nothing wrong with you, sir, ma'am, and you go from there. And people are going to see that and go, that's the person I want. I don't care what they say. I want more of that, especially on what's happening today. So maybe what's happening today is going to show us so clearly what we don't want that we will then swing the other direction, and then there'll be a day where we say, Kryon's right. Look at these campaigns. Or, they're kissing each other. So you don't know what you don't know, and jobs is one of them. Economy works that way. There's always a problem when you have new inventions that take away jobs and things, and we'll get through it. I hope that helps. We have one last question. I'm sorry about the people. I'll tell you what. No more people in line. We'll deal just with the people who are. Well, we have to go quicker, and that's my job. I'm sorry, your time is up, sir. That's my humor.
It's a short one.
Okay.
So I'm very impressed with the method that seems to be sweeping the world, the Ho'oponopono method, therapy method. And I was just wondering if it goes back to the time of Lemuria.
Absolutely. In fact, it is a Hawaiian name. I learned about it more than 10 years ago from Jan Tober. She was always talking about Ho'oponopono. And then we would have this thing where we touch foreheads and you're supposed to look in each other's eyes. I could never do that. I just burst out laughing. This is just whatever. This is a forgiveness process. And the forgiveness of others and yourself is key to starting a compassionate purpose.
Hi. I was just curious if you have an update on the water cycle. I live just south of Charlotte, and I think we came in at like 18 or 20 inches above average or normal.
It's going to continue that. There'll be cycles of more and less. But what you're seeing is a change of weather. So the weather means water. San Diego, where I live, is known for very constant temperature. It's a desert area. There is very, very little rain. So we buy our water from Northern California. They're now in trouble. And so there's a raging argument about why should we sell our water now to the south and all that in California. You're starting to see that. So I would like to tell you, in the last month and a half or so, when I return home, it's raining. It's been raining almost every other week now in San Diego. That's unheard of. I was raised in a town, I saw snowfall for the first time when I was 30. I was raised in a town where it wasn't a day where I couldn't ride my bike. That's what I'm used to. It's changing there, too. It's changing everywhere. More rain, less rain, expected. And that's going to happen. You're going to continue to have more rain in these areas. So what do? You just prepare for it. And it means if you have to do more drainage and the city has to come up with it, you do that. You survive. But in this area, this little mini ice age we're going to have is going to change the weather, but you're not going to be frozen out like they are in North Dakota, and they have to look at electricity production and all the other things. So in Australia, it's interesting. It's just the opposite. They had the hottest summer they've ever had before. We're talking 120, 40 degrees Celsius. And that's in town, that's in Sydney. Bushfires are going like crazy. That's all part of the weather shift too. They're seeing the opposite of the mini ice age down there, but they're certainly seeing the weather shift.
Hey, I totally understand how the light is giving us all a better view of what's in the dark. My question is, how can we best support, because all that's going to be a huge shock to everybody's system. And even us that are aware of it are still going to go, ugh. So how can we best support ourselves, our loved ones, and our community, our country, our planet as a whole to hold space for that?
That's going to be up, they're going to watch your reaction because you tell them you've got something. You're in a meeting like this and you're studying it with us, with me. They're going to look to you for your reaction. And if you go wacko and into fear, they'll know that everything we teach is nonsense. You see?
They're going to look to the people that the community is going to look to the people that are not losing their minds.
Yeah, but they're watching us. They're watching us. We got people in almost every industry in here. We got teachers and nurses and healers and whatever, and maybe even a physicist. This is what I see in our audiences. It's how we react. It's also how we react to our kids and our grandchildren and whatever, and what we show them. And if we're not afraid and we have good explanations and we talk about light and all, it gives a whole different perspective. But they see balance. We got to show them balance. This is Kryon 101. That's the answer. No matter what happens on the planet, we got to show them balance. People say I'm the Pollyanna channel. But you got to remember, Kryon is a futurist. Kryon sees and tells us nobody can ask me a question in the break. I know what you're thinking.
So I think we're all ready. So soften your knees, really focus your intention, connecting in with Gaia, with Mother Earth, and drawing in, take a deep breath. Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, Gaia. Thank you, Gaia. Then ever so softly bring your hands up, and drawing in a breath. Thank you, dear Creator. And drawing in another breath. Thank you, dear Creator. Drawing in another breath. Thank you, dear Creator. And have your hands facing each other. Feel that energy, that beautiful energy build within your hands. And take a deep breath. And as you exhale, we give the intent to have peace within our body. Take a deep breath. And as you exhale, our intention is peace within the body. And then gently bring those hands back in. Take a deep breath. And we give the intention for peace within the body. And then softly bring those hands back in. You may even wish to put your hands on your heart. And I invite you to sit down and keep that sensation, that feeling, that connection. As you sit down, I invite you to close your eyes. Maintain that rhythm of breathing, where you're breathing in and breathing out. And feel that peace within the cells of your body. And it is a peace that radiates out from you. It's generated from within because mastery is within. It is where everything is generated, and this beautiful communication we'll have with Kryon, it's coming from the inside of your cells. And so in this beautiful, peaceful countenance, we invite the loving messages from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. This particular channel, at the close of this day and the close of this meeting, is for those here. Eventually, it will be listened to by many people who would expect perhaps another channeling of information specific to a theme. But it's not that way. The message is for those of you in the chairs. So many times the questions have been asked after a meeting like this, where those who have presented have gone quickly with so much information. And it happens again tomorrow. And some have asked, how do we treat this kind of thing? Where you are fed information that perhaps you didn't expect, that is beyond what you thought could even be. Tomorrow there will be a validation of some things you didn't expect are here already. The teacher Greg told you that some of the world's most pressing problems have already been solved. There is a quickening, dear ones. For all of those of you who sit in the chairs, you should hear this. A quickening of what is available on the planet. This is a battle of dark and light. Are you surprised that there are those who would like to sequester it now? Who don't want the light to come bursting out from those even sitting in the chairs? And it's true. There are those right now on this planet invested in keeping things from the light. And you're going to see more of it. And that is what you're experiencing, that sometimes is so perplexing, that's made so much of a change on this planet. But what about you? Sitting here right now. I know all of you. Every single one. I speak to you from a place that is inconceivable. When you were young and you were told about God, one of the things that was universal was that God could listen to 1 billion prayers and know every single one of them and the heart from which they came. Hard to imagine, is it not? That there is some kind of a creative source, a loving source that knows you so well that 1 billion of you can speak at the same time and God hears you. From that stance, I say, I know you. Not the Kryon knows you, but the source of which I emanate knows you. You're here in the chairs and you either believe these things or you don't. That there's something larger than that which you have been told about God. In any classroom of any church, of any group of individuals, you have no idea. And that is what is bursting out. Bursting out of even some of you. That is what brings you to the chair when you say, I want to know more. And it's not necessarily more about the science or that which is coming, but it's more about you. What is it right now that you could learn or you could know or you could be that you would leave differently than you came? And perhaps it is perception, but more than that, what if you were here to receive what I'm about to give you? If you are ready, an infusion of love and compassion that might change the perception and open you up to an understanding that you are a piece of God. And in that, everything that was presented today, you can drop your notes. It goes in and stays at some level. Because you have that same attribute that you learned so long ago of a Creator who could listen to 1 billion prayers. And in that you also have the ability to stop for just a moment and open up your countenance, your entire spiritual being. Think of it as an opening flower that has been closed like a rose for so long. But then given just the right impetus, it might open up just slowly enough to let in what you came for. Not the information, that's there as well, but an infusing of something you didn't expect right now. Right now. Those who sit in the chairs who want it, something that's going to blossom a little later and something that you're going to feel. Perhaps now, perhaps days from now. When you start to analyze what happened this weekend and you say, something happened to me, and it wasn't the information. Dear ones, prepare to get bigger in a spiritual way than you think. That is why you came. Not just to this meeting, but perhaps why you're on the planet. Open up that flower for a moment and then close it in a moment, because this is a precious place that you expose, where it's absolutely safe to be. And in that moment, right now, I want you to feel the infusing of love and compassion pouring into you. Like Spirit, like God has all of a sudden extended His hand, her hand, and in that you take it. And you say, I've been waiting for this moment. Mastery is part of this process. You deserve it. It is your lineage. You're here for it, and you don't have to work. All you have to do is understand. Right now, with that flower open, give permission to flow into you. Let the spigot open and let it pour into you, and understand that this is why you came. It is your privilege, your magnificence, to receive every single thing that you think you came for. Dear ones, the issue is this. The image of the Creator is here, and it's far larger than anything you've ever been told, ever, on this planet. That is the discovery at hand. Feel it. Feel it. Accept it if you wish. It's your free choice to have opened the flower or not. It always will be. It always will be. Nothing is pushed upon you that you did not ask for. Nothing. Slowly close the petals of the flower, because you expose something precious. Something that only you would expose when you know it's safe. And that is your inner core self. That's why you came. There have been those who say, how does God see me? And that is such an open question. It's beyond the perception of anything that you think God sees you as. How do you see your children? What kind of love and compassion do you have for your own flesh and blood? You are part of the creation. Your soul is eternal. It never was created. It never will end. It is part of the Creator. That's who you are. That's how God sees you. He doesn't see you in human form, does not see you as a name, but sees your soul, which God created as family. You are seen as an equal, as family, as beloved, cherished, and loved. And that is the truth that you needed to hear. Go from this place differently. And when you have a quiet time, you might even, when you're alone, raise your hand and say, was this real? And prepare for the chills to come in that would say to you, welcome to family, dear ones, in a way you never expected. This is why I came to this planet, for this time. Not 20 years ago, but for now. This is why the channels have changed and my partner has changed. It is time for revelation. And the ones who are going to receive the most are the old souls, just like the ones sitting in the chairs right now before me. And so it is.